Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right, 5-minute segment here, 12-minute segment coming up with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. We've got our reporters from San Bernardino, California, joining us with video and audio feeds at the bottom of the hour, Joe Biggs and others. Don Salazar just ran in here and he said what Dr. Pieczenik just talked about, there being other reported shooters, is true. And I remember seeing that in the news, but we have a CBS News clip we're going to put in the computer, we're going to play later, next segment, where one witness said, no, there were 3 tall white males with guns that were shooting people. There was an active shooter drill there. I mean, the mathematics of that happening and this happening, I get it. I really haven't gone there. My reporters have. I've been attacked in the Washington Post over it. Because I don't care. They opened the door and brought these people in to begin with. So it's a false flag any way you slice it. But I tell you, I'm so sick of everything being a false flag. But the evidence just mounts and mounts and mounts. And then the fact they think we're so dumb that they would let people attack us or bring them in or do it and then blame our guns and blame the internet for it really shows how stupid they think we are. Dr. Pieczenik, we've only got 3-4 minutes left in this segment, long one coming up, but specifically, what do you make of that? And then let's start talking about real terrorism that you've actually dealt with.
Real terrorism doesn't occur on a false flag. When I had to deal with a Hanafi Muslim in 1978, Carter had created the situation accidentally, and I had 500 hostages in 3 buildings. The FBI correctly called me in under the auspices of the U.S. prosecutor. And what I did was to take the Quran and basically use the talents of 3 Muslim ambassadors, Yaqub Khan, Gourbal, and Zahidi, one Egyptian and one Iranian. And we were very effective in disarming a man who had killed about 4 or 5 people. That was real terrorism. And that was the first time the issue of stopping a Mohammed film and the fact that we had to release hostages was an issue, and I didn't release any hostages, and I didn't allow him to continue. He was declared mentally ill, but I knew his background, and basically we disarmed him, even though Jimmy Carter was not very helpful, and I was disobedient. The point here that I'm trying to say to your public, and you have said repeatedly, is you must be disobedient. I'm asking our military and our intelligence officers to be disobedient, because if you're not, you're going to destroy this country. And the only reason why I survived was I was a Navy captain, a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and I said to the President, you're wrong, and you stand down or you fire me. And I continued. I did the same thing again when it was in Panama, where Bush tried that, and I explained it to the CIA operatives that if you continue this, I will get you into trouble. I did the same thing in Cambodia, where the CIA got involved again, created distortion, denial, and we disarmed them using other techniques that I cannot go into. So the primary problems we have in the United States is not Muslim or Christian or any religion or ideology. It is the dysfunctional aspects of a CIA and an intelligence community that has grown out of proportion. We now have 16 different intelligence units that do absolutely nothing, are paid trillions of dollars, is run now by a Navy admiral who really never had any experience in intelligence, was a submarine commander, was run before by a general who was in G2 and had many degrees. But this cannot continue. We do not have a Congress, a president, or a military and intelligence that is viable and concerned about our national security. And that's where America has to have the American Revolution in a way that's productive and constructive. Why you are important and why Trump was important is you are the game changer. You are the expression of that American Revolution in the 21st century. To allow the truth to come out, St. Augustine said, don't worry about the truth. Let it do what it does best, to destroy those who distort the truth. So I quote St. Augustine, and I say to the American people, please don't give up, and don't give up hope. Stand by what you believe and demand a referendum to get this president out and demand accountability from Bush, Clinton, and others for criminal acts.
We'll be back.
And we will win.
We'll be back. Stay with us. Dr. Pieczenik's our guest. while we see radical jihadists brought into the country, whether it's false flag or not, we see the president saying it's the fault of the Second Amendment that would cause a revolution in this country if they come for the guns. We have Obama saying, I'm going to put you on a no-fly list and you can't own guns extrajudicially. Where are the constitutional lawyers pointing out this is a Constitution-killing initiative? Meanwhile, new Star Wars plot is cloaked in unprecedented secrecy, and theaters plan contest fans to watch for days until they drop. I mean, the movie looks unwatchable. They get the worst actors. I thought the guy that played Darth Vader last time, looked like a kid from a school play. Now they've got some other new lead actor who is just as bad an actor. And this is our big cultural experience. World governments being established. Huge military escalations between Turkey and Russia. Turkey's now moved in troops into Iraq. All hell's breaking loose. The Turkish president's threatening to blow up Russian ships. If that happens, you know what's going to happen. The Russians are going to respond. It's going to escalate very, very quickly. And the average American, the average young person especially, I'm talking about 25, 30-year-olds, is drooling over Star Wars. Drooling. And they're so bad. It's like one big, giant Jar Jar Binks nightmare. So, revolutionary in 1977, not revolutionary today. Horrible. James Earl Jones and Alec Guinness, these people are not, to quote Yoda. Penis transplants being planned to help wounded troops. Wow. Yeah, they weren't paying for so many sex changes for everybody else that might have the money. Scientists turn to religion for climate action. Yeah, they're now trying to fund groups to stop the satanic denial of that. We've got Venezuela opposition is basically taking over the legislature. Socialists are on the run. Oil's the lowest it's been in 7 years. That's some of the news up on drudgereport.com, up on Infowars.com. Obama, 6 years later, calls Fort Hood a terrorist attack. J.P. Morgan and Citigroup agree that the U.S. economy is steamrolling towards recession. Oh, they've finally come out and said it. Former Congressman Joe Walsh goes on anti-Islam rant, dares Loretta Lynch to prosecute him. Regardless of what you think of Islam or radical Islam, don't you have the free speech? Now, we've got Adon Salazar in the control room. I want him to introduce this clip, and we'll get Dr. Pieczenik's take on it, saying that how was there a drill at the exact same time of this happening with armed military police there? I mean, that is super rare. And it just keeps happening at false flags. And then you've got witnesses saying they saw white guys running around. Well, see, the globalist up above it may have had the police there for a drill to confuse everything even more in case something went wrong. See, a lot of times the drill isn't people that are part of it. That's why they had folks in the 7/7 bombing admit, we were running a drill, the exact same trains and exact same bus being bombed at the exact same time. Scotland Yard was part of it. Well, they weren't part of it to go on the news and say, it's crazy we were running a drill. They were hired for smog, for confusion, for fog of war. In case any of the false flaggers got caught, then they just say, oh, it's part of a drill. Or maybe Dr. Pieczenik can correct me and explain how that works. But they also bootleg the funding for attacks. But listen, there were real bombers, as best we can tell. They were being handled by a MI6 operative who, again, was a Wahhabist. So it's this sickening Saudi Arabian deal with Western intelligence to wind up these loons, let them hit us, and then they take our freedoms away. But let's go ahead and go to this clip. Adon Salazar brought it to my attention. You're backing up what Dr. Pieczenik was just saying earlier. Tell us about these two clips, Adon.
Well, we were really careful not to jump on the whole false flag narrative first off, because everybody expects InfoWars to, claim every mass shooting is a false flag, which, obviously they aren't all false flags. But this one, we were careful not to call it a false flag from the beginning. And then last night, I saw an Intel Hub piece where one of the writers was analyzing a CBS News piece. And
have we posted their whole article yet?
The lady they're interviewing, she claims she says she was inside the Inland Regional Center when the shooting happened, and she describes 3 shooters, white, male, tall, wearing military gear, which doesn't fit the description that, of the assailants at the end. It wasn't Muslim. They weren't two Muslims, a male and a female. She said specifically she saw 3 males. So here's that clip if we want to run it.
Let's run it.
You know, why would we hear shots? As we look out the window, a second set of shots goes off, and it's just pop, 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 pop. And we saw a man fall to the floor. Then we just looked, and we saw 3 men dressed in all black military attire with vests on. They're holding assault rifles, and they opened up the door to Building 3, and one of them opens up the door to Building 3. He starts to shoot. He just, shoots all over into the room. That's the room that we typically have conferences in. We just heard more gunshots go off.
That's Sally Abdelmajid, I think is how you pronounce it. And there's other witnesses saying the same thing. There's the Intel Hub run by Shepherd Ambulance, a pretty good website. He's a really great guy. I love the new look at their site. I haven't looked at it lately. Eyewitness to terror attack. 3 tall white men did it. Boy, MSNBC will have a heart attack of joy if they get to do that and make it racial. But this doesn't fit what the other witnesses said about how they made the Christians and others beg for their lives. So do they piggyback something? That woman sounded pretty credible. I know we have another clip. Let's get Dr. Steve Pieczenik's take on what he just heard.
I think that's very credible, because since 9/11, we've had the same type of dynamics. We have the white guys creating the problem, then blaming it on the Muslims. In effect, the Muslims have not been a major part of this problem. The major part of this problem has been us, when the enemy is really us. And this is the problem. And unless we start to indict past presidents, the present president, and get rid of all of this nonsense in our intelligence and our military community, we're not going to succeed, and we're headed for self-destruction. Obama's part of this. Cheney was part of it. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. The republic is deteriorating, and it's self-destructive. This is the modus operandi of what happens when you have an intelligence community that is totally out of control, has no oversight, and we have no ability to control what's going on.
Okay, I see the evidence of false flag, that they open the doors, at least let them in. I mean, that's open and shut. This makes it even more suspicious. I just can't believe they would be that reckless, but, I mean, look what they've already done, as you said. Well, then the narrative, the calculus, it blows up in their face. If they bring in radical jihadis and let them attack us, why would they do that? Well, we see it. Come after our guns, come after our speech, and say we must comply to radical Islam so they don't kill us. Is that the calculation?
No, the problem is they're not smart enough to figure out what you did. And I'm not trying to laud you. I'm just simply saying they didn't put in their calculation in 9/11 that there would be an Alex Jones and a Dr. Pieczenik who would a year later predict that 13 years later the president of the United States would claim he would kill a man who was already dead. That's the problem with all of this strategic false flags. They're not smart, and they think the American public is dumb. The American public is not dumb, plus the fact you have Alex Jones and 20 million listeners, plus the fact that we have the Internet, and it works both ways. The Internet may expand and create fear, but at the same time, in the hands of an Alex Jones or Dr. Pieczenik or Trump, it reverts. We can use it as the weapon. They did not expect that to happen. They were not prepared for that. And that's why they kept monitoring me in particular. As you said to me, thousands of operatives monitor me. Of course they monitor me. They know my history.
I've been off record visited by U.S. agencies and foreign ones. And I've gone ahead and met with the people, and, they just point blank say, we're deciding what to do with you. And I just go, well, do whatever you got to do. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I know you've got those visits as well. I just don't think the average person out there understands how serious this is. But here's the good news, Dr. Pieczenik. I've had former heads of special forces, current generals, people in Congress contact me and say, we're rooting for you. We appreciate what you're doing. And so there are a lot of good people in the system as well.
They are, but they have to act. There has to be a core of defiance by the special forces, by our intelligence community. And for that, trust me, I will pay a price later on, because I normally get emails from the intelligence community saying I've gone too far or I will get another subpoena. But I'm willing to do this to say to the American public, enough is enough. Our country is out of control. The Salafists and the Wahhabis, they're a problem. But if you want to have the problem neutralized, we could have neutralized that decades ago.
Oh, I agree. Well, I've had the Saudis messing with me, too. They know that I don't... I mean, they know that we don't like their organization because they're the ones
that... But remember, it's the Bush family. You're talking about Marvin and Neil indicted for SNL scandals. You're talking about Bush Sr. indicted for 9/11 and 2008, Bush Jr., 2008 financial crash. Now we have Jeb Bush, who was involved in the transition from one illegal government to another, whose whole history is based on illegal activities in Florida.
I know. All I'm saying is, Doc, we got to go to break. We got to go to break. We're going to come back. Don has another clip, and we'll get some final comments from you. I'll just be honest. I don't want the credit because it's so dangerous. This is a scary job. I never intended to be this successful. But what you're saying is actually true and accurate. And I was actually told this basically by some of the Trump people. They're aware of what's going on. And it's just beyond a science fiction movie. I just can't believe that other people didn't stand up and fight the globalists. But the good news is it shows the power of the people. My listeners, my audience is the real power, and that's what the globalists are afraid of. And the good news is I've already gone to seed. They can take me out, but people already get the paradigm. The transmission's already sent, so I hope I'm a little bit safer because I don't want to mess with these people. Welcome back. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We put together a compilation of Obama saying there's no such thing as basically radical Islamic terrorists and that we're just scared of women and orphans. That's all coming up. Then Joe Biggs from the ground in San Bernardino, California. And I think what Dr. Pieczenik's saying is, yes, there are radical Islamists. Yes, there's Wahhabis out of Saudi Arabia. But the core problem is our Western governments are working with them. And I agree with him. They're funding them to go into these countries to destabilize the area. And we've had so many top generals come out and say, we've been ordered consciously to do it. It's wrong. It's evil. And then the media spins it. Former head of Defense Intelligence says we screwed up. But then you actually watch the clip. That's not what they're saying. So that is disobeying orders, saying that on national television. That is bold. And so I think what Dr. Pieczenik's calling for is starting to happen. One of the most dangerous things you can do, though, is to call for people to do what they're doing in government. But it's even more dangerous to let a criminal outside group take over like this. Let's remember, these are illegitimate groups that are doing this. It's criminal. Just because a guy hijacks a plane and is wearing the pilot's uniform doesn't mean he's the pilot. I think that's what Pieczenik's getting at. But Adon Salazar, the reporter pointing this out to us, we're posting the entire IntelliHub article at Infowars.com right now with the video. But good job for the journalist groups out there ferreting this out and pointing this out. What's this other clip?
This is of Sally Abdelmagid, the employee of the Inland Regional Center, and it's the other half of the interview where Scott Pele, I think, is the CBS anchor that's interviewing her. He asks her if she's certain that she saw 3 men, and she confirms, and then at the end of the clip he says, well, now we know that it was a male and a female. So
wow, staying with the script. Let's go to it.
I couldn't see his face. He had a black hat on, and from my view, all I could see was just a black hat and black long-sleeve shirt, possibly gloves on. He had black cargo pants on, the kinds with the zippers on the sides and the big puffy pockets. He had a huge assault rifle, and he had extra ammo. He's coming ready for something. To reload, I don't know. He had like magazines. I couldn't see what else. I just saw 3 dressed exactly the same.
You're certain that you saw 3 men?
Yes. It looks like their skin color was white. They looked like they were athletic build, and they appeared to be tall.
And then he goes on and we play the full clip and repeats it's a man and a woman. This could be, though, because there was a drill going on and then she's not into guns and people are shooting and she's confused. But still, the fact that there'd be a drill at the same time. Dr. Pieczenik, closing comments on this.
What you're seeing is the collusion between the media and the government. Let me make it very clear. For example, when Osama bin Laden was not killed, the CIA immediately opened an office and literally dictated the script for Zero Dark 30. I reprimanded that. I was thrown out of the Producers Guild and then eventually brought back in on the Academy Awards. What you have is repeatedly somebody like Anderson Cooper bringing in Bob Baer. Anderson Cooper worked for the CIA as an intern, still works for them. You have Bob Baer, who was a CIA operative who was really out of control in the Middle East and literally gave you the storyline for Syriana, which glorified his position. So what you're having throughout the media are people who are in the intelligence business and then twisting those stories around for their own gain. Most of them are not heroes. Most of them are not great Americans. What they are is very greedy individuals who want to make money, who make money on this kind of business where they offer protection, where they offer some kind of position. But for the most part, these are frightened individuals. When 9/11 occurred and 2 CIA operatives had to admit to me what had happened, as well as military intelligence, you have to realize that almost everyone who works in our government, in either intelligence or military, is beholden to a paycheck.
Well, do you remember the Rumsfeld clip that came out where he's with 6 generals and they say, sir, we may need another 9/11. Can we please have one?
Yep.
And it's being recorded. And that's the thing that's so crazy is that you've said you'll testify to Congress that you were Council on Foreign Relations meetings, and there's just open discussion of this. I mean, when I've had these foreign governments come visit me, they're just very honest about this. And they go, okay, well, you know it's a false flag, but you don't hate our country. And I'm like, no, I don't hate your country. And you know a bunch of governments are involved. Yes, I know a bunch of governments are involved. And I just can't believe that even these groups, I don't say this to make me sound big because I don't like this, they're actually scared of me. And I just don't want them to stop saying my kids belong to the state and they want my guns, Doc. I just want them to cut them.
Well, they won't, because you are protected by the truth and the fact that there are many people who care about you, and the fact that Trump came on was a major, major game changer, the likes of which people still don't really understand.
Stay there. I want you to finish. 2 minutes, Dr. Pieczenik. StevePieczenik.com. Stay with us. I know one thing for sure. When the New York Daily News comes out and has one of their journalists say that the conservatives that were basically killed there deserved it because they were conservative, we're dealing with some sick freaks. And the whole leftist ideology in this country has just mutated into bizarro land. Again, I've said this 1,000 times, I'll say it again. Thomas Jefferson was what I'd call a liberal. George Washington is the country's first conservative. I admire both men. I would be a liberal in 1776. These liberals today are freaks. And I know conservatives can get real weird in wartime and stuff too, but man, you know, I mean, I tune into MSNBC and it's like some type of Soviet brainwashing channel. I mean, they're so weird. They're so manipulative. They're so cult-like. We're going to be talking more about that. We have a compilation of a video that Dew put together titled Obama Caught Running ISIS. It's very powerful. Then Joe Biggs will be joining us from San Bernardino. And then right into the 4th hour, Paul Joseph Watson from London. We haven't even gotten into the economics, the Trump news. There's so much more. But I think the good news here is this radio show, other radio shows, folks like the IntelliHub that was breaking that other news, everybody. The alternative media is becoming the dominant media in numbers, not just in having more credibility. And it doesn't mean we have all the answers either. But the establishment is out of gas. They have no credibility. And you've got these different criminal camps that are trying the same old thing. And I just wanted to say to Dr. Pieczenik briefly and get his brief response. He's got to go and we've got to go. He was on a few months ago, and he said, you know, at the CFR and all the rest of it, I fed the line that Jeb Bush had run, knowing that once he got back in, we used 9/11 on him. And then I see Trump start using 9/11 on him, and then I have some discussions. I'll just leave it at that. And that's indeed what they're doing, is basically baiting the media in to attack him as a 9/11 truther. And then he's going to destroy the Clintons and the Bushes with it. But they were smart enough. It got real big, and then crickets, no stories. 2,000 plus stories, and then no stories. The word went out, shut that down. So now, obviously, I can let everybody in on the hat trick because, you know, now the this particular cast of the fishing rod lure was somewhat successful, but not fully successful. Plus, it's good to let them know that they're not the only ones that play games. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that. And again, I'm not here with some agency. I'm not being advised by people. I'm just here common sense. And then I talk to Pieczenik, and then I talk to some other people, and they're on the same page, and I wonder if they know each other. Pieczenik says they don't. But it's just people that get what's going on and know how to respond to it. But that is pretty exciting, Pieczenik.
Well, not only are you correct, but let me give you an example. Cornell University, which is considered a liberal school, produced three of the most fascist neocons: Sandy Berger, who died, fortunately, recently, Paul Wolfowitz, and Steve Hadley, all involved in 9/11. Sandy on behalf of Clinton, Paul Wolfowitz, and the other person on behalf of Bush. And they were all in Quiller and Dagger secret society at Cornell, which I knew nothing about. Harvard University, mass mental health, involved in the storyline of the false flag and Sandy Hook, as well as Yale psychiatry department. I indicted all of them, and they couldn't respond. And I indicted them of corruption, of moral corruption, and financial corruption, and they couldn't say a word. Those are three major universities. And believe me, once you have those universities in a state of fear, now you have a real problem, because it's gone to the educational level, the media level, the government level. And I'm not being paranoid. This is very
well, what they can't deal with is that now the military, the police, the local governments know the narrative. I mean, the governor of Texas pretty much listens every day. I'm not going to brag about it. I don't want to get into inside baseball. They're in trouble. And more, we're willing to be attacked. We're willing to be killed, I guess, if we have to be. And I don't think they know how to deal with people that aren't cowards like them.
Well, the point is your influence, and I know, for example, at Rutgers University in New Jersey, is immense. It is absolutely immense. And that feedback doesn't come back to you, but it comes back to me through the professors. Your influence on the students in Cornell, at Harvard, and Yale is far greater than they realize. And the people who've been brought in as the dupes of those universities, believe me, they've been bought out by Sandy Weil of Citibank. For example, Cornell University Medical College, which was an elite medical school, 180 years in existence, changed its name from Weil Medical College. It was bought and totally bought out and grafted by Sandy Weil, a total crook from Citibank. And now it's called Weil Medical College. The same thing with Icahn Medical College and Geffen Medical College. So what you see is happening is the money of the private sector is co-opting any of the institutions we have, at the same time co-opting the political and military-industrial complex. That's why our generals, they are so bloated, and there's so many of them, more than had ever been in World War II. I don't have a George Marshall. So you and I are in effect acting as the George Marshall to say, get rid of these 4-star generals, get rid of these 3-star admirals, get rid of these bloated political generals who really are not of great service. What I need are the captains, the majors, and lieutenants who will not make it up the system. And I ask them again to seriously understand what you are following through. Those who have committed false flags or have gone into killing Americans or anyone else will pay the price. Believe me, I have always been successful in retribution. And that the CIA knows that, the intelligence community knows that, and the military knows that. That's why they always hand me a subpoena and they monitor me repeatedly, because I don't make false promises. And they will pay, whether it's Trump who comes in and makes them pay or others who are in the institution that will make them pay. But they will not continue to do this. And Obama's on notice. And you have a Secret Service who knows more about any of our presidents, has never been able to come forth as an American institution.
Yeah, I've been told by the Secret Service, I'm just going to leave it at this, and not specifics. They didn't break any laws. They just said it's worse than you know, it's worse than you say. I mean, I've had Bongino on, who was the head of their foreign detail. He said it's worse than you say, Alex. They say it's so insane, I wouldn't believe it. Dr. Pieczenik, stevepieczenik.com. We appreciate you coming on. Powerful interview. We'll talk to you again soon, sir.
And God bless you and your audience. Thank you very much for having done everything you did.
No, thank you, sir.
No.
I don't like to get on the show here and talk about how big we are and how effective we are, but at this point we have to, because the enemy already knows that. And I like to kind of be under the radar over the years and just being effective, but now, believe me, imagine there's not many shows like this, and what do you think government's tuning into? And I'm just a guy from Texas that analyzes it and has experts on, and I just want my country back. I don't have any personal beefs with these people. I was screaming at Obama last night during the piece I did because I'm just sick of it, man. Blaming the Second Amendment for the jihadis he brought in? I don't know what really happened. All I know is you're not taking my freedoms, buddy. And then they got freaks in MSNBC and the New York Daily News saying the conservatives deserve to have their heads blown off? What? It just doesn't compute that you're such freaks. You run everything, too. That's dangerous. You people are scum. You have no good taste. I mean, I'm calling you names because that's what you are. People are dead, and you're saying that they're bigoted scum that deserve to die because they said they were a Christian? I mean, what's your problem? Seriously, we're going to go to break and come back with Biggs for 2 segments. Please support the broadcast. We've got the Deep Cleanse back in. We've got it $5 off. First time we've discounted it. Free shipping until the 18th. We're selling out of the great charger car battery units. Those are excellent as well. A lot of other great products. InfoWarsLife.com. But right now, let's go to this powerful piece that Rob Dew and I put together. This piece, headline, Obama caught red-handed running ISIS. Here is the report.
Last night, on my orders, America's armed forces began strikes against ISIL targets in Syria.
U.S. counterterrorism officials asking why are ISIS fighters driving so many similar trucks, and where are they getting them from?
How do we know that the arms that are going to the Syrian rebels are not going to get into the hands of ISIS?
Because if we had people who were there to funnel it to the right people, and I know these people, and I know who they are, and I know how to do it, and so do other people.
You are basically saying that even in government at the time, you knew those groups were around, you saw this analysis, and you were arguing against it, but who wasn't listening?
I think the administration.
In an interview with the New Yorker magazine, he compares groups linked to al-Qaeda to an amateur basketball team.
Intelligence officials in Pakistan say a local commander from the terrorist network Islamic State has admitted receiving funds transferred via the U.S. He made the confession while being interrogated.
Today, we learned that the same group may now be in possession of a deadly cache of American-made firepower Stinger missiles.
I think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafist, Al-Qaeda, and
a
Muslim
willful
Brotherhood.
decision to do what they're doing, which you have to really ask the president, what is it that he actually is doing?
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
Now, U.S. military aircraft have dropped ammunition in areas held by ISIL terror group in Iraq. Now, according to volunteer forces who are fighting the terrorists, American helicopters dropped boxes of weapons in Yathrib and Balad districts in the Salahuddin province.
We now hear that President Obama will ask Congress for $5.3 billion to equip and train Iraqi soldiers and quote-unquote moderate Syrian rebels to fight the Islamic State militants.
Reports say the U.S. military has airdropped weapons for the ISIL on several occasions.
Last month, I ordered our military to take targeted action against ISIL to stop its advances.
Do you know that he made the Air Force drop leaflets telling the ISIS truck drivers to get out, that bombs were going to fall? Did you know that? Does anyone know that he did that? This is going to make people think twice about this guy. This is not as clear as it may be of he's just a pacifist or a liberal. There's something more here, Donald.
And it's been more than a year now. ISIS's capabilities seem to be expanding. Were you aware that they had the capability of pulling off the kind of attack that they did in Paris? Are you concerned, and do you think they have that same capability to strike in the United States?
The unclassified reports have estimated that in just the first 12 months of renewed ISIS operations in Syria and Iraq, they've recruited more than 22,000 foreign fighters. At least 4,000 are Westerners. So those are Americans, Brits, French citizens, German citizens.
It was very disturbing to pull this from the UM website in September that says of the 381,412 arrivals that came across the Mediterranean Sea just this year up to September, that 15% were children, 13% were women,
and 72% were men.
Such a backlash against Syrian refugees coming to the United States after the word that some of these attackers may have passed through Syria. 31 governors now say they don't want them living in their states. Many presidential candidates calling for a ban or religious tests. Congress moving for a moratorium on new refugees.
They point out there's an extensive vetting process that includes the intelligence community, the Departments of State and Homeland Security. In fact, George,
concerns in Syria is that we don't have the systems in place on the ground to collect the information to vet. That would be the concern.
Yes, I think that's the challenge we're all talking about, is that we can only query against that which we have collected.
You can't account for what you don't know, and that goes to the intelligence deficit that I think is embedded in your question.
But apparently they're scared of widows and orphans coming into the United States of America as part of our tradition of compassion.
It's a terror threat unlike any Europe or the U.S. has seen before. It's the ultimate stealth weapon for ISIS.
A female suicide bomber is like a stealth precision weapon.
A stealth precision weapon, Brian, and this is a major change in strategy.
Thanks to our military and counterterrorism professionals, America is safer.
We may have somebody who comes to us and is simply not on our radar for any discernible reason. And there may also be the possibility that somebody decides to do something bad after they've been admitted through the process.
We do not close our hearts to these victims of such violence and somehow start equating
the West,
the issue of refugees, with the issue of terror.
Caused it.
Been reaching out to various countries that have been fighting ISIS in Syria and Iraq, urging followers to attack in their home country.
The FBI is still gathering the facts about what happened in San Bernardino, but here's what we know. The victims were brutally murdered and injured by one of their co-workers and his wife. So far, we have no evidence that the killers were directed by a terrorist organization overseas or that they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home.
Because we have the clearest indication yet that that shooting rampage 2 days ago in San Bernardino, California, was an act of terror inspired by ISIS.
New details about the couple involved in that deadly San Bernardino mass shooting, including a statement of support for ISIS by the female shooter, Tashfeen Malik.
But apparently they're scared of widows and orphans.
ISIS has been a main concern of the U.S. through just this sort of radicalization. Not directed plots, but people who follow ISIS propaganda through their relentless outpouring of propaganda around the world every day.
In June 2015, Iraqi officials reported that as many as 500 children were kidnapped by ISIS to serve as suicide bombers and child soldiers.
Anybody who had a chance to see those kids, hopefully you understood the degree to which they're just like our kids.
New Islamic State video shows boy soldier execute 2 alleged Russian spies.
Long way from when you described them as a JV team. Was that bad intelligence or your misjudgment?
Keep in mind, I wasn't specifically referring to ISIL. As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
That's a powerful piece that we're going to be posting the full video of in the next 20, 30 minutes to Infowars.com. And there is a lot of breaking news, obviously, at PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars.com. The U.S. continues to target Syrian military, blowing up their bases to help ISIS. And the Turks have gone into Iraq, where the Iraqis were defeating an ISIS enclave and have blown them to bits. And Turkey says they're preparing to attack Russian ships. So there you go. That's who runs our governments. Complete psychopath demons who, again, run baby harvesting facilities. I mean, just what do you expect? Mainstream media admits gun control doesn't work. There's another report out with George Stephanopoulos, an important article that Kit Daniels wrote up on Infowars.com. So this is just some of the news that is up on that site. We're going to go to break, come back with 2 segments with Joe Biggs, and then we're going to hand the baton to Paul Joseph Watson. Briefly, Deep Cleanse, one of our the most popular product, if we can keep it in stock, is back in a small run of it, and we're discounting it by $5. We don't normally, you don't discount something you can't keep in stock. We just do that, especially during the holidays, and free shipping running through December 18th. Deep Cleanse available, discounted for the first time ever at InfoWarsLife.com. That's one word, InfoWarsLife.com. Or InfoWarsStore.com is the big umbrella site, and your purchase funds the whole operation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to go into the fourth hour. I'll do 5 more minutes, and then with Joe Biggs in this segment, and then the next, so about 12 minutes total. Then we'll hand the baton to Paul Joseph Watson. Watson may want to keep Biggs over some, I'm not sure. But Biggs is going to be coming back to Austin soon. Then after the holidays, they're going to go back out around the country to more jihad and radicalization centers around the country. They were out covering that on the East Coast when this happened, obviously predicting that attacks would be taking place. It is a false flag. They opened the door and let him in. But now there's mounting evidence of the drill and more. This is really looking suspicious. What we do know is Obama's blaming our Second Amendment. And we have this article, leftist journalist, victim of San Bernardino shooting, deserved it because he was conservative. I can't believe a woman named Linda Stasi, she really has the name of the German secret police, would actually make statements like this. But we saw similar statements from other news channels. Joe Biggs, that's got to really freak you out, being there on the ground right there at the memorial where 14 people were killed. I mean, this is sickeningly evil. She'll probably get a Pulitzer Prize for saying that, though.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And like you said, we're standing outside of the Memorial Center at the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino. And, I was listening to your interview with Steve Pieczenik earlier, and a lot of things he says I have to agree with. And the fact that, earlier today, Adon sent me that email with those videos. And, when you go back over and you watch it, that firsthand account of how they were describing the people that were coming through shooting. It's really odd when you see this unfold, days later, and what the narrative has been pushed out.
Continue with what's developed in the last 24 hours.
Well, as yesterday, like we said yesterday, the father of Saeed Farouk came out and said that his son had admitted to him that he did support ISIS. He had pledged his allegiance to al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. And then last night you have President Obama coming out saying that the people in America are afraid, we're scared, which I don't quite frankly agree with whatsoever. I don't think we're scared. I think the person who was scared is President Obama. He never seems to want to do anything, especially for the American people or the interest for us whatsoever. He always seems to be doing everything he can to help and evade the enemy.
Well, Joe, obviously, when I thought of it, you and Leanne were already on it. But you've got to get to this lady, and we need to see her on camera, describe this, be clear, explain that she actually saw the guns recoiling because it could have been part of the drill. If she sees that, and she sounds credible, but if you're able to vet this and get an interview with her, this is going to be bombshell. And if she is for real, which she probably is, she's probably being threatened right now.
Well, she's probably already been gagged by now at this point in time.
Well, try to get to her and find out. Go to her house. I don't care. Do whatever you obviously have to. This is a priority. I witnessed a terror attack. 3 all-white men did it. This is just over the top to see this, and then to have the drill happening at the exact same time. Now, she may have thought that guys in the drill were part of the shooting. So we need to get you there and really, gauge it with her on camera. But obviously, she needs to be talked to.
Well, the thing is, the police officer, the police officer I spoke to 2 days ago, I believe it was, he said that he was the 3rd officer on scene. His partner was the 2nd officer on scene. These guys were all in police uniform. There weren't anyone else that came in before that. So the first actual police responders, the first people there, from what he said, were actual cops and not people that would be dressed up in SWAT uniforms. So that's definitely an interesting thing for her to see that. Could it be confusion? Could it be the adrenaline pumping, not knowing what's going on, just being scared and just seeing people running? It's hard to
But
really
she sounds pretty clear. She sounds pretty clear twice about what she saw. And again, there was a drill, though. Were they part of the drill?
Yep, right down the street to my right, a few miles up the road. That's where it was taking place. And they have been known to be happening right here at this exact location as well in the past few months.
I don't know, Joe. You've gotten mad at folks that said other stuff was false flags. You were in Paris. You were at other events. But you said day one you smell a false flag.
With this one I do, because there's way too many things out there that just stick out. I mean, there's a lot of things that do not add up.
No, they don't. Stay there. Stay there. Stay there. We're going to come right back to you in 70 seconds. Fourth hour, Infowars.com/show. Pray for this broadcast. Pray for America. Pray for peace. Pray for enlightenment. All right, Joe Biggs will also be on the nightly news tonight, filing a report and more. He's coming back to Austin here very soon with our great crew, and they've got a lot of HD video they're going to be compiling on their investigations into Islamabad and other facilities, Detroit, you name it. This is only leg one of what's going to be a three-part investigation, 2 more parts coming. Shifting gears out of whether this was a false flag or not. They let them in. They protected them. They attacked us. I believe more of this is going to continue to happen. But, Joe, looking at Obama